They poured an $85,000 garage onto my property without asking for permission, and I just smiled, kept my mouth shut, and watched them finish every last wall. While the HOA board was busy planning their big ribbon-cutting celebration, I was quietly filing paperwork that would transform their expensive project into my legal property. They thought they were expanding the community clubhouse. What they didn't realize was that they were building me a very costly present. Before we go any further, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country down in the comments. My name is Ranatacole, and for the past 11 years, I've lived in a peaceful neighborhood called Brookhaven Ridge. It's one of those places where everybody recognizes each other by name. Every lawn looks picture perfect, and the HOA sends warning notices if your trash can sit at the curb 2 minutes longer than they think it should. Right beside my house sat an empty grassy lot. It had been vacant since long before I moved into the neighborhood. Most residents simply assumed the HOA owned it. Honestly, even I rarely gave it much thought in the beginning. But there was one detail nobody knew. That lot belonged to me. Years earlier, I had purchased it separately from my home as an investment property. It was listed on my deed, properly recorded with the county, and completely legitimate. I never felt the need to advertise it. The HOA mowed the grass. Neighborhood kids occasionally played there, and truthfully, none of it bothered me. Until one Tuesday evening changed everything. That's when I discovered a flyer taped to my mailbox. Exciting news, it announced. Brookhaven Ridge is constructing a brand new community equipment garage adjacent to the Cole residence. The moment I read it, my stomach tightened. They were talking about my lot. That same week, I attended the HOA meeting with the flyer clutched in my hand. The board president, a man named Dale Pute, sat at the head of the room as if he personally owned the entire neighborhood. Dale, I said, doing my best to remain composed, the lot you're referring to is actually my property. He laughed, not the uneasy kind, a genuinely dismissive laugh. Ranata, he replied, that's common area. It's always been common area. Our records clearly show that it belongs to the association. Your records are incorrect. I answered, I have the deed. He waved his hand as though I had commented on the weather forecast. The budget's already been approved, he said. The garage is moving forward. If you attempt to interfere, the board can fine you for obstructing a community project. I walked out of that meeting furious, my hands shaking, but something deep inside warned me to stop before reacting emotionally. That night, I pulled out an old folder I hadn't opened in years. Inside were my original deed, my title insurance documents, and the county recording stamp. Everything was exactly where it should have been. Lot 15. Legally mine. The following morning, I contacted an attorney named Vincent Mars. Send me every document you've got, he told me, and don't say another word to them for now. A few days later, he called me back. What he said completely changed my strategy. Renata, he began carefully. If they construct a permanent structure on your land without your consent, and you don't immediately stop the work, that structure may legally become yours. Fixtures attached to property belong to the landowner. He paused. If they finish building that garage, it could become the most expensive gift this HOA has ever handed anyone. I sat frozen in silence, the phone pressed against my ear. So what exactly do I do? I finally asked. Nothing, Vincent replied. Let them build. But that wasn't even the worst part for them. They had absolutely no idea what they were about to place in my hands. Over the next 2 months, I watched from my kitchen window as construction crews arrived day after day. Concrete trucks, framing teams, electricians, the entire operation. And it stopped being a simple storage garage almost immediately. Dale got greedy. He persuaded the board to approve insulated walls, polished epoxy flooring, custom-built cabinets, security cameras, and even an EV charging station because, according to him, the garage could also serve as an exclusive meeting space for the HOA board. The budget continued to climb. What began as a $20,000 project eventually exploded into an $85,000 undertaking. I documented every single step, time-stamped photographs, videos of the ongoing construction, copies of promotional flyers announcing the project. I even recorded Dale bragging at a neighborhood barbecue. "This garage is going to be the crown jewel of Brookhaven Ridge," he declared proudly. Meanwhile, my attorney was constructing something far more valuable, an airtight legal case, one so solid that not even Dale's own HOA lawyer would be able to argue against it, and the board remained completely unaware. They believed they were almost done. They thought the difficult part was behind them. They couldn't have been more wrong. As the final week approached, excitement spread throughout the neighborhood group chat. Dale announced a grand ribbon-cutting ceremony featuring refreshments, a large banner, and even a commemorative plaque from the local council offering congratulations. The HOA congratulating itself on its beautiful new community addition. That's when everything changed. 3 days before the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Vincent sent certified legal notices to every single member of the HOA board. The letters clearly stated that the structure had been built on privately owned property without the landowner's consent, and that any continued attempt to occupy, use, or claim ownership of the building would be considered trespassing and unlawful possession. That same afternoon, I hired a locksmith. I had the only access gate to the garage rekeyed. New locks, a new chain, a brand new padlock. Then, across the front of that freshly completed $85,000 garage, I posted 2 signs written in bold red lettering. Private property. No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. I stepped back and stared at the building they had constructed on my land. For the first time in months, I genuinely smiled. The morning of the ribbon-cutting ceremony arrived bright and sunny. Neighbors gathered carrying coffee cups and folding lawn chairs. A few children even waved small flags, excited to be part of the celebration. Dale stood proudly in front of the garage doors with a microphone in his hand, preparing to deliver the speech he'd probably rehearsed all week. "Friends," he began, "today marks a historic moment for Brookhaven Ridge." Then someone in the crowd interrupted. "Dale, why is there a padlock on the door? And what does that sign say?" Dale turned around. The color drained from his face as he read the words. Private property. No trespassing. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Phones appeared almost instantly. People started whispering to one another. Dale fumbled through his pocket, pulled out his keys, and tried the lock. Of course, none of them worked. That's when I stepped forward with a folder tucked beneath my arm. "Dale," I said calmly, making sure everyone could hear me, "I think it's time we discuss who actually owns this lot." I opened the folder. First, I held up the deed, then the title insurance policy. Finally, I displayed the certified legal notice my attorney had mailed to the board 3 days earlier. The entire crowd fell silent. "This is Lot 15, I said. "It has belonged to me for years, and I have the documentation to prove it." I paused before adding the part that truly landed. "And as of this morning, this building, every wall, every wire, every dollar of that $85,000 investment legally belongs to me." Dale opened his mouth. Nothing came out. One of the other board members snatched the folder from my hands and hurriedly flipped through the pages. Her fingers trembled. The color vanished from her face. This is real," she whispered. She looked directly at Dale. "Dale, did you seriously approve this project without checking property records?" Dale muttered something about outdated maps and decisions made by previous boards. But by then, it didn't matter. The damage had already been done. Within days, the HOA's own attorney stepped in. After reviewing the documents, he confirmed exactly what Vincent had told me from the beginning. The land belonged to me. The garage qualified as a permanent fixture attached to the property. The HOA had only 2 options left. They could demolish the structure at their own expense, which would cost approximately $30,000, or they could compensate me for its value and walk away. At the emergency board meeting that followed, the members cast their votes. Demolishing the garage made absolutely no financial sense. Instead, they voted to reimburse me for the value of the structure. Less than a week later, Dale resigned. Residents had discovered just how much community fundraiser money had been spent on his personal upgrades. The custom cabinetry, the EV charging station, even a mini refrigerator engraved with his own name. As for me, I became the owner of a fully finished $85,000 garage, sitting proudly on my legally owned property. Insulated walls, epoxy flooring, security cameras, every last upgrade included. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't explosive or dramatic. Sometimes it's patience, paperwork, and one perfectly timed padlock. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe to HOA Revenge Stories so you don't miss the next unforgettable showdown. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my position?